Well, welcome back all my intrepid vintage dirt bike browsers, and thanks once more for taking the time to tune in to my world of classic dirt bikes. Now in this clip we are going to take another look at a machine from the Andrew Craig collection. Now you may already remember I have already featured a couple of Andrew's bikes here on my channel with his 1989 ATK 250 and more recently his lovely 1979 Mark 12 250 Bultaco. And so this next featured machine from Andrew's collection is this very nice little 1975 CR125 Honda Elsinore. Now these little Elsinores of course were named after the famous Elsinore Grand Prix which was held in the Californian desert during the 1960s. Now Honda used the Elsinore logo for promotional purposes to place on their 125 and 250 off-road bikes in 1974. Now Andrew's little 125 is of course not a fully original bike from 1977, although it's still a very nice example of one of these iconic machines from that period. Now when Andrew first purchased this bike, he was at the time looking for another machine to add to his classic dirt bike collection, and he spotted this little machine on the Doc Wob motorcycle dealer's website. Now Doc Wob were selling this particular bike on behalf of a local motorcycle dealer who had unfortunately just recently passed away. Anyway, it wasn't long before Andrew purchased the little bike, and it was only a few days then before the partly disassembled bike turned up on a pallet at Andrew's home. Now Andrew said that the bike looked great, although there were one or two issues with it that needed addressing. It wasn't anything major, but then again Andrew was going to tweak things and put his own personal mark on the bike anyhow. Now as far as the little 125 motor goes, the engine was in great condition and sounded really good. Andrew was also told that the engine had previously undergone porting work on the cylinder, although the seller could not verify or had actually checked to see if this was the case. But nevertheless, and just to satisfy his own curiosity, Andrew lifted the top end off the motor to find that the jug looked by all accounts authentic. Although it did look like no such porting had actually taken place on the motor, although it was fitted with a brand new Wiseco piston and piston ring and had a recent rebore into the bargain. Although unfortunately there was a slight downside in the condition of the motor, and that was that the barrel was now down to its last official overbore at 57mm. But nevertheless, despite these little niggly problems, the engine was in absolutely superb condition, and so Andrew was perfectly happy with the condition of the 125 engine. Now when Andrew first purchased the bike, it came with an almost nearly brand new steel fuel tank, and Andrew had second thoughts about riding the bike and possibly damaging this very rare original part. But so in order to keep the tank in pristine condition, Andrew ordered a plastic replica fuel tank from DC Plastics in the United States, which came of course with a brand new filler cap, petrol tap and all the mounting rubbers. Now the original seat that was fitted to the bike felt really soft but didn't have much of a cushioning effect for Andrew's small posterior, and so he sourced a replacement from JK Racing in the UK. Now the new foam was perfect, although the accompanying cover did not have the original look for Andrew, so he returned it and then bought a replacement direct from the USA, which also didn't fit well and was once again returned. So in order to get it right, Andrew sent the cover to a custom seat maker in the USA that he had used before on many of his other bike builds. He then manufactured an original replica seat with the Honda logo silk screened on the back. Now one of the first things that caught Andrew's eye when he took delivery of the bike and that was that it seemed to have a set of Hagen shocks fitted that were just far too long for the bike. In fact, Andrew said that when he sat on the bike initially, the seat compressed more than the actual shocks did. Now, of course, these were immediately replaced with a pair of these lovely period correct Falcon shocks. Now, these Falcon shocks together weighed half the weight of just one of those old Hagen suspension units. Anyhow, after Andrew did a bit of research, he found that the Hagen shocks that were fitted to the bike were actually intended for use on a big XJR 1300 Yamaha road bike. Now, of course, this is not the original swing arm for this bike, as the original would naturally have been made of steel. Now, the original steel swing arm was replaced with this alloy cross-up swing arm, which of course is much lighter than its steel equivalent. Now, when Andrew rode the bike for the first time, every time he started to move off, the bike kept stalling, and Andrew was beginning to wonder if it was his hand and foot coordination that could be wrong. But as it transpired, the replacement alloy swing arm was out of alignment and had some form of twist in it. This was eventually cured by sending the item to his local engineering shop, who heated it and then placed it onto a jig, where it was then realigned properly and returned to Andrew in better than new condition. Now, the front suspension, of course, is the original forks for this machine, which had undergone complete renovation prior to Andrew purchasing the bike. Now, when Andrew first took delivery of the bike, both the front and rear wheels were in absolutely perfect condition, although Andrew then fitted a new pair of Metzler motocross tyres to spruce up the tired looking ones that were now showing signs of heavy use. But of course, Andrew's new machine was not a complete rebuild, but Andrew did tweak one or two things to improve and upgrade the bike. Now, this very nice exhaust system is of course not the original for the bike from 1977, but is a much better upgraded system from Dave Miller Concepts. Now, these exhaust systems are handmade and fit and perform much better than the original Honda items. Of course, these systems are not cheap because they are handmade, but on the other hand, you are building bikes like this to race on the track, and you should never scrimp in quality and always buy the best that you can afford. Now, the handlebars that were fitted to the bike were original 1977 Elsinore items, but then Andrew sourced a new set of old stock replacement cables, grips, levers, and of course a brand new throttle gasser. This was of course just to make sure that all the bike's controls were in the very best of order. And of course the fork triple clamps and all the fasteners, nuts and bolts are all original 1977 items. Now, after a few race events with the bike, this little Elsinore 125 was then mothballed to sit in Andrew's collection. Anyhow, fast forward a few more months, and it wasn't long before another Honda Elsinore fan had spied Andrew's bike and made him a very generous offer to buy the bike, whereby it was then sold to be used as a classic race bike once again at vintage events. But Andrew told me that this bike's purchase was never about whether he was going to race it or use it as a show bike. Andrew says he just loves working on and being around these old classic dirt bikes, and generally if he sees a bike that he likes, he just buys it, and it's only then he decides if he will restore, repair, race or show his bike. So there you have it, another very nice old school classic dirt bike. That's Andrew Craig's 1977 CR125 Honda Elsinore. So if you like looking at these old classic and vintage dirt bikes, please subscribe or continue to browse to my channel and to check out more of these iconic vintage race machines here in my world of classic dirt bikes. Thanks again for giving up your valuable time, and of course, thanks for watching. This video was brought to you in association with Wolfsport, the world's #1 supplier for all your off-road and leisure sportswear. Just visit their online website for more details.